Call this meeting of the Jamestown City Council to order for Monday, September 23rd. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Sheldon.
Here.
Brackman.
Here.
Peternity. Reynolds.
Present.
Faulkner. Configlio.
Here.
DeVersa.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
And President Joyce.
Here. This time we'll give the opportunity for the public to speak. If you'd like to address the council tonight, please give your name and address. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Anybody like to speak tonight? Anybody?
No, sir.
Doug Champ, 225 Bowling Street. I'm gonna start the discussion a little bit tonight, the time I've got called, City of Change, change being C-H-A-N-G-E. And why am I saying that is that I get a lot of stuff sent to me from all over federal agencies. Maybe the city gets this, maybe they don't get it. And, it's important, I think, that this kind of information, be looked at. Now, I know we have a very good grants person, who is on top of most of this. But in prior administrations, I constantly sent stuff, to them, and it was totally ignored, and consequently, nothing was ever really gone after. And that is unfortunate, because the federal government right now has issued, under the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, what they call Community of Change Grant Program. And that's $2 billion that's available for a whole variety of things, especially in a community like this, which is disadvantaged in so many different ways. Not only for the people who are homeless, but the people who live here, however you want to shoot it. It would be extremely important that we investigate this possibility, because change in many ways is a good thing if it's accountable and done properly. If we ignore change in that aspect, then we're kind of like continuing with the same old processes. So if the city doesn't have this information, I can send this to them and have it, and I would encourage them to discuss it with City Council, because the application deadline is coming up in November, and there's a lot to it, but there's a lot of money for it. So that's change for money. Now, the other changes that I'm looking at is changing in operational aspects of what we do to make things a little more easier. I talked earlier with the DPW committee about changing the alternate parking from starting in October 1st to going to November 1st. And I realize there's consequences for that in terms of some cost for signs or whatever. But did a calculation, just so you can get these facts and part of the environmental quality of cities, is that you have 1,000 cars that have moved every other day to the other side. Each one of those vehicles start up and idle. Over a month period of time, some will use a pint to a half a gallon of gas. That's 1,000 cars doing this on a 15-day basis over a 30-day monthly cycle. So what I'm saying is that not only does it have a good quality of not doing it environmentally and economically to some extent, but it also is the benefit of trying to move traffic around when you have a nice, clear October day. But somebody's got to move the car across the street. I don't really think we should not continue that process, and I trust that this be worked through. Maybe not this year, because I talked about this 20 years ago. Okay, and the same old, no change. So now change should be done. Other things dealing with this is that I've asked to request that the BPU have the solid waste and sensitive landfill material open in October rather than closed in October on a Wednesday. So it'd be open like 1 to 4 on a Wednesday, so people like me who are retired don't muddy up a Saturday when everybody else has to do it. And if we get a rain out on a Saturday, that postpones it another week. At least if you have another Wednesday, you have that opportunity to use it. It's a great service, and it should be open longer, I think, for the month of October. The third and final thing is I wholeheartedly support the resolution in front of you to the police department for its range improvements. Years ago, I actually shot down there, and it's still the same range that it was then. And I hope that that goes forward. The only question I had, and I'll ask this to the chief, is it be possible for that time in the range to be leased or offered out to adjacent police departments for a cost-plus basis in terms of time of using it? Because it's gonna be a highly certified range. Your tactical equipment is gonna be shot down, the long guns are shot down in Stillwater. But the tactical equipment on a pistol, how it operate under certain conditions, would be nothing but able to be improved upon. Then you got the academy, so could that be a revenue producer in some form?
It's a possibility we'd have to look into.
Because it would seem to me that over time, that would be an asset that you could share, rather than just maybe being a good neighbor, but have some type of return on investment. That would be a question that I have to offer. Other than that, I hope everybody has a good night, and I can leave and go home and watch a football game before you. So, that's into my spiel.
Sure. Anybody else like to address the council tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our committees. Billy, you wanna do a quick housing, and we'll look at time later.
Yeah, quickly, really didn't have anybody come to speak. Doug did come in a little bit later, but Mr. Chance did. We had Casey Falk here. Crystal's out of town on a conference, and it was good to see Casey back in action here and helping us out with our housing dilemmas and issues going forward. She reported on the the roofing project where there was enough money for 28 projects, 28 to 30 projects, plus or minus a few. Over 100 applications were received. There was about 70 denials. This was an unusual grant-based operation because it set the income level quite high, which is unusual for the municipality. A lot of paperwork and crossed through the checks and balances for all the criteria, so Casey and Heather fine-tuned that, and I think you said 3 or 4 are gonna go out already, Case, and that'd be great. Demolition-wise, all the properties that the land bank has say in have met the environmental reviews, have been completed. They're still doing some asbestos testing to see which ones need to be remediated. She commented on 366 and 386 Buffalo Street during the progress of being taken down. We had Council President Mr. Dole's comment on some Lakeview properties that were in distress. Doug brought up to us that one of those properties might be of historical significance status, and that was going to be looked into. Also on Tower Street, 58 and 112, they've been taken down and waiting for sidewalks to be repaired and some final cleanup. Some issues with Hazard and Partridge, and some houses on Spring Street are getting some extra attention. Comprehensive plan and zoning session at the Wicked Warren Brewery went real well with a large number of attendees. And Casey reminded us that on the city page, the feedback survey is still up and running and online for people to add their 2 cents and their ideas and suggestions. Regina brought up 18th Street. There was a condemned house that looks like people were squatting in it. Another one possibly on 9th Street. And then I brought up one that is on Prendergast that Tony also knew about, where looks like the door's been kicked in and some squatters are there. So it was nice to have Casey here to take those down. I know that's a little out of normal reporting, because we like to run everything through Liz, and that's also available for citizens and taxpayers and neighbors to report different things through the city website. so that Liz can, look through the complaints. Doug mentioned, one last thing, mentioned a housing assistance plan that used to be in place years and years ago, and that with the housing costs being super expensive these days, that he's still optimistic that there might be some vendor, some way, some company that might take on some salvage capabilities before these houses are torn down, that some architecturally type stuff can be utilized and salvaged. Other than that, it went pretty smooth, thank you.
I just had a quick question on the roof program. The individuals that have been chosen, have they been notified yet? If not, when will they be notified? And if the people that are denied, will they receive a denial letter at all?
Yeah, everyone will receive a letter. The 28 accepted people will receive a letter. We're having 5 like wait list contingent applications in the event that there's additional like leftover funding like there was last round. And then the remainder will receive a denial letter. We're hoping to have those mailed out by Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Will this come again, or is this it?
This is it.
This is it.
This is it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Finance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Our comptroller Erica presented us with an update on the American Rescue Funds. Like, everybody should have a copy of it in front of them. Turn it over to Erica, so she can get the highlights on that.
It's updated through spending through, month to date September. The last project that I added was the adjustment for splash pad, so there's one on the agenda that would have to be updated. And, the range, which, is part of, the range would be funded instead of the 3 police officers with the remaining balance of $500,000. There was a give back of over $1 million of that project because we weren't thinking we were gonna get the police officers. So that's there. So right now, excuse me, there's $2,082,000 that is unallocated as far as the ARPA funds. The majority of that is kickbacks from original projects. There's $40,000 that, of the original 28 million that wasn't allocated. So that and give backs is the $2,082,000.
So that's what's left.
Did the YM get allocated money, 200 and some 50,000? No?
If things were awarded, that was
It
awarded,
wasn't spent.
but it wasn't spent. So it's an award on here. If they change their plan,
So they can't get it? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. That's what we need to figure out.
They haven't asked that question. But that
Well,
was-
only because I think they're expecting it. It was 225 or 250?
200.
200, okay.
But
Yeah, I
the problem is it's
didn't
not
get
the
to the
same
last meeting,
plan.
so I didn't, yeah, because the plans have changed, obviously.
That money was allocated when they were gonna build the new
Right.
ride down on Harrison
Right,
Street.
and that's
So
not gonna happen.
obviously, if that's come to fruition again, then we would have to.
Well, that was a question that was asked to me last week by the board, that how was it worded and is the money still there and is it still eligible? Still building a project, it's just a different project, but
Right.
that's, something has to be.
Yeah, they're still gonna need money, but
Right.
not as much.
And I didn't have an answer to that yet, but we'll find out.
All right,
Elliot will have to address that.
okay.
But that's still included in here, correct?
It is included down below. It has nothing to do with, she's allocated it, correct?
Right.
Because it's been awarded technically. So it's on your note down below as an expense that's been allocated. In the DOD's numbers, I think.
So if it's not spent, we have 2.2 million instead of 2,082.
Correct.
Nothing's gonna go the other way, but it could go,
Right.
When Crystal's back, we'll tie out with her, Erica.
instead
but
of,
I'm sure it's in here.
Okay.
It's under the nonprofit fund.
the other thing of note, just so for the new people too, as well, this has to be allocated by the end of this year. It has to be spent by 2026. Right. So it's kind of a use it or lose it. So we have October, November, December to spend 2 million, otherwise we're not eligible to use that, correct?
No, it can get moved to lost revenue for us. We're not losing anything. We
It has to
have
be allocated.
No, contracts have to be signed by the end of the year. We can allocate it to lost revenue with no contract.
So it's
So-
just, it just dangles out there? Till when?
No, it'll go to lost revenue for the city.
Which means it could be spent on, what?
Anything that the city lost revenue due to use of COVID.
Okay. Alright,
Is
so
there an expiration date on that?
Everything has to be
Yes.
spent
by
by
2026.
Regardless.
Okay.
But it's not, we're gonna lose it, unless the government comes in and decides to pull it back.
Or we don't spend it
Correct.
Or we don't spend it.
Correct.
by the expiration date.
Thank you. All right. So we did have resolutions here. The first to authorize the mayor to enter into agreement between the city of Jamestown and Collaborative Children's Solutions Incorporated for the purpose of being the lead agency in Jamestown community events. This is a 4-year contract with CCS Inc.
And Councilman Sheldon?
Yep.
I have a slightly different agreement that we drafted based on a few changes, and then Mr. Smeraldo from Collaborative Children's Solutions, if you can pass this down, Bill,
Yep.
is here to speak on it. Council, any questions?
Thanks.
Can you highlight the changes for us?
The brief changes that we have are specifically since the city is sponsoring the events. Children's Collaborative Solutions Collaborative Children's Solutions, I was that messed that up, I apologize.
It's okay.
Will not be paying those vendor fees because they are in essence the city sponsored contractor for these events. As well as the fact that, Gus Macker will have the overtime paid for by, Collaborative Children's Solutions.
And that just holds true to what we've done the last 4 years. That's actually not a change as to the way we've done this last 4 years.
And Mayor, didn't we allocate money for this last year for 2024 events?
Yeah, it's in our budget.
It's in our budget.
That's part of here. We did
Okay.
it as a one-time, but he wanted a multi-year contract.
Okay,
Yep, that's
So-
the only difference.
so it'll be
in that.
budgeted for the next
Yep.
3 years then, okay. All right. Any questions?
Question I have is, and I think that maybe others have brought this up before, is if we had an employee working here at the city that were running these events, that were in charge of all these events,
Mhm.
and I'm not asking for exact numbers, obviously I'm not gonna put anyone on the hot seat for that, but would it be fair to say that it would cost a lot more to pay an
Yes.
employee with benefits, health insurance,
Mhm.
retirement, to run these type of programs? Is that an accurate
It's a
statement?
very accurate statement with the increase in minimum wage and the increase in our benefits, which you guys will see soon, the cost of our benefits, yes.
So, I mean, for maybe the naysayers that would say, well, why are we giving money to a non-for-profit to run these programs? It's actually financially, smarter for us to do that.
Correct. And the other side of that coin, Pat has obviously demonstrated the tremendous ability of him to go out and also get other sponsors to make those things grow, that we as a municipality could not do. for legal reasons. So he's able to turn that around and take that 60,000 and triple it into the cost for events, in my opinion. I don't know what your actual spend is, but just seeing the growth of your,
What the contract is for is just expenses, and I have receipts, my accountant, we do that anyway. You know, when you're looking at a cost of insurance that's gone up, that we carry additional insurance, cause we're additionally insured, it's probably gone from 2,000 to 10,000 just this year alone. You guys have seen that as well, you know, for Labor Day, or, everything's done individually now. Same thing with, everything, you know, expenses and fireworks, expenses and entertainment, anything with sound guys. So it's a break-even point. But the reason for the 3-year contract is to solidify, and that's already helped, right? Just the announcement of it, where we can now go to vendors and say, hey, do you wanna now do this for 3 years and lock you in, but we're gonna need a better rate, and or different sponsors to come on for a 3-year period versus once a year. You know, it would be maybe January-ish, February-ish, where Dan Stone would call me and say, hey, what's going on with Memorial, or with St. Patrick's Day? And I'm like, I don't know. We haven't been in discussion yet, so the 3 years is to solidify that and a bunch of other great things.
Kinda off topic, were you satisfied with the new location of the Gus Macker down there at the college? And-
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn on it. I'm torn on it, Councilman Russell. And if it is again, I've already spoken with some people about putting another event, whether it's Christmas or July or something else, in downtown Jamestown, because I have a love for downtown Jamestown. I don't have a better word for it. It was better in the fact that it didn't cause the parking problems we had with Big Lots and Rite Aid and the headaches we caused there. It didn't cause, security was, in the evening was much better, because even though we had it guarded all night like we did before, it doesn't have to walk through traffic that Brooklyn Square has. You know, I mean, I still loved it downtown, so can we put something else downtown to make it better earlier in the evening maybe? My dad, God bless him. I don't wanna close a city street for 3 days, because that's just detrimental to business. We did it in Brooklyn Square without doing it. A parking lot offers those benefits a lot more, but to close I get a stomachache thinking, well, closing 3rd Street for 4 hours for the Christmas parade, just like what people are gonna miss.
Right.
So there's goods and bads, but yeah, it was great. And JCC was a tremendous partner.
I've heard nothing but good things about what you've done with everything, so I'm on board with this for sure.
Thank you.
Now that resolution was passed in our committee. Next, the mayor is authorized and directed to purchase from Allied Alarm Services, from Polk, New York, all necessary materials, tools, and labor for the installation of 4 additional cameras at the JTNY Powerhouse Skate Park, and the total cost $8,784.00. This is gonna be coming from ARPA funding. That was approved. Resolution, the mayor is authorized and directed to purchase 1 new file server and 11 workstations from Dell Incorporated. The total cost of $40,000. This was resolved that the costs associated with this purchase will be paid using contingency funds. And just to note, this is the first time we've used contingency funds this year. The theory was to kind of alleviate some of the problems with next year's budget by purchasing these now, that the file server definitely needs to be replaced. So that was approved. Next is the 2024 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program. Authorizing the mayor and the police chief to accept the grant of $16,754 to be utilized by the Jamestown Police Department for the purchase of disposable nitrile gloves and barricades. That was approved. The next is a resolution authorizing the mayor and Chief Matthew Jackson to enter into agreement with Action Target of Provo, Utah, for the retrofitting of the Jamestown Police Department's indoor range at a cost of $385,000.01. And this money is going to be coming from ARPA. And as the comptroller explained, there was money allocated to the police department for hiring an additional 3 police officers, which is, they have not been able to do. So they've given back some of their money, over $1 million, and kept $500,000, which the cost of doing this will come from that, $385,000. That was approved by our committee. The next is Officers Caitlin Promber and Jackie Albin will be authorized to attend the FBI 40-hour basic FBI crisis negotiator course to be held in Rochester from September 20th to October 4th, with all lodging, meals, and gas expenses to be paid by the police department. And you've seen this is, the negotiators have been put to work recently here, so this is definitely something needed. That was approved. The next is to suspend the hiring freeze and to hire a laborer in the Department of Public Works Streets Division due to a recent resignation. That was approved. And finally, authorizing Mark Retzer, acting director of Public Works, is authorized to attend the Nikon Public Works Training School to be held in Saratoga Springs from October 20th to October 23rd, with all expenses paid in accordance to section 77B of the General Municipal Law. That was approved as well. I was busy at work on the budget with the mayor. And a lot of other things going on in that office. That's all we have.
Thank you. Move on to public safety, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. President. All of our resolutions that we had were on the finance side, finance agenda as well. The first one was for the mayor and the police chief to purchase nitro gloves and barricades. Grant money of $16,754, and that passed. And the second one was also on finance, and that was for the range, the new range down at the police department. For those that don't know what that range is, it's in horrible shape. It's been that way for decades. It's barely usable. Bill and I were kind of joking that it was probably condition it's in now is probably the same condition when he started.
Worse, after the flooding.
So it's bad. And as most people in the business of law enforcement know, that in real life situations you're going to react the way you train, and you have to have the right equipment to do that training. So it's long overdue that the range gets fixed. And obviously, like Brent said, this money is coming from unused funding from the police department for a few positions, and then the chief also brought up some vehicles that were not purchased. So that'll be coming from ARPA funding. There was a question, or I asked him if he could get us exact numbers, because the numbers that were provided to us were from April, and they were only good for 30 days. So I'm assuming it's probably gonna be more than this amount. So he's gonna work on, I think he's already made a phone call to the company today to get more up-to-date numbers from April.
Maybe
So-
we'll get lucky.
What's that?
Maybe we'll get lucky.
Yeah, it's not today's world. I don't
When
think
can they
we will.
start? Is there a starting time? Chief?
I don't know.
So that passed, and then the third one also was for Officer Caitlin Promber and Jackie Alvin to attend the 40-hour basic FBI crisis negotiator course in Rochester, September 29th to October 4th of 2024. And expenses being paid under section 77B of the General Municipal Law. of the state of New York, and that passed. And then we had one informational report for a special event, Nightscape Horror Festival, to be held from October 11th, 2024 through October 12th, 2024, 9 a.m. until 11:59 p.m., including setup and tear down, primarily located inside the Northwest Arena, with street closures requested for Jefferson Street from 2nd to 3rd, then Lafayette Street from 2nd to 3rd. And all the paperwork was in order for that, and that passed. I'll just back up for a minute. There was no one from the public that spoke. There was some discussion that was had. It seems to be a continuing topic of conversation on better signage in front of some of our schools to make them more safe. I brought up that people seem to be concerned about more visible signs out in front of Jamestown High School. I don't know if that's a possibility. I understand that's a state road, obviously, but is there any way that we can look at the signage?
It's not a state road in that
Okay.
section. The state road doesn't start until the intersection of Fourth Street.
Okay, alright. So if, I don't know if we could look at maybe more visible signage in front of Jamestown High School on 2nd Street. Seems to be lacking. I think there's members of the school district that would love to see a crosswalk right there coming out of the front doors of the school. Obviously, you'd have to replace all the curbing and handicap accessible right there. I've kind of joked that I think you could put 5 crosswalks right there, and some of the students still wouldn't utilize any of them. They would pick a spot where there was no crosswalk. But maybe if we could just look at the signage there. Also, I had received a phone call from Officer Alexis Carlson from Jamestown Police Department, who continues to echo concerns about the traffic and the safety in front of Ring School, and that blind corner down there. There's a new principal at that school who has a lot of concerns about the kids crossing the road there. Evidently, with the church being closed now, the church is allowing parents to park in that parking lot across the street, and parents and kids, as a result, are not using the crosswalk there, and they're just crossing the street below that. So that was a new concern of theirs, being able to utilize that parking lot, and also the blind corner there, and some truck traffic coming from maybe the DPW building there. So that was, I don't know what we do on that corner there, then having to revamp the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it.
Yeah, so, and I know Mr. Champ had talked to me, he said that he has some information that he's gonna provide to me via email that would allow that whole section to be a school zone, between the two, and there wouldn't be that break in there. We'll see what he provides to me. He claims he found something that would allow it, so we'll see what happens there. And I think that was about it.
I'd like to piggyback on that, Mr. Russell, on the results from 2 weeks ago. We had some videos and concern about the activity of South Avenue being quite a traffic hazard at the stop sign at Whitehall and South. I was able to reach out to Lakewood Bustine Police Chief Chris DePonso, and was able to commandeer, I guess, one of his speed trailers that was set up on the south side of South Avenue between Forest and Whitehill. And our DPW guys and traffic or sign guys put a new high visibility stop sign on the city side of the intersection, and somebody painted the cross or the stop lines a lot brighter. And according to Chief Jackson, a few tickets have been issued there, and so little squeaky wheel got the grease. So we're glad to see some effort on our part being fruitful. So we'll keep a vigilant eye on speeders and stop sign runners.
One thing that, just piggyback on Jeff and the ring school, I remember a number of years ago, there was a request to move the stoplight from in front of the school down to the intersection of Newton Street, and at that point,
It's expensive.
yeah, the light, the traffic light, and I think that there was an estimate of the cost of about $100,000 to do that at that point, so I'm sure that cost has escalated at this point too.
Especially now, that's not the front door anymore. The front door is by the parking lot,
Mhm.
so we don't utilize that as much, but.
Something to look at. Thank you.
Randy? Public
Yeah.
Works.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had two resolutions that were covered in finance as a backfill a labor position in the DPW. And due to a resignation, and the other one will be for Mark Ritzer, the director, to go to NICOM Public Works Training School. And he went before, he said it was very informative, and so he's going back, and we approved both of those resolutions. And we did hear from a gentleman that lives on Terrace Place, off Forest Avenue, about possibly making that street a one-way street due to the fact that it's very narrow and there's a lot of kids in and out of there, and it just might be easier to do some snow removal there. And Mark is gonna look into it to see possibly if it's feasible to put a one-way street there. The other person, member of the public, of course, was Doug Champ that came, he told us, and the concern over the school, the double school zone on Buffalo Street, Mark had filled us in that the state requires you cannot exceed so many feet, and the feet over there is over 3,000 feet in totality, right, Mark?
Yeah, if you were to combine those two school zones into one school zone, it'd be 3,000 feet. And from what I found, is New York State doesn't allow school zones to be larger than about 1,300.
Mm-hmm.
But would that go for two schools?
Yeah, they wanna,
Right.
what they're talking about is connecting
Right.
Washington Street and Ring School
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
into one big school zone the whole way.
Right, so I guess what Mr. Champ had brought up to me was, and he agreed with you, that if, what he was saying is that, is the state realizing that there's two schools that are that close together?
That I don't know.
So I could see if there was one school there, and you
Right.
could only have so many footage, but because you have two that are so close together, would they allow the two to be connected? That's what I would like to know.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a very unique situation that they're so close together.
Right, yeah.
Could they be combined, because they're so close together? Cause it really, it's a silly setup
Mm-hmm.
to.
'Cause you gotta go 20, then it's 30,
And
then
then,
it's 20.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's, and I think that it would possibly help quell some of those issues down at Ring School if it was one school zone, you know?
It's almost similar to when you were going into Gary, it was 55, then all of a sudden you hit 30. So what they did is they went from 55 to 45, then to 30, which makes sense, because then you could slow down eventually. And it would make sense if we had that all one school, where it's 20 all the way, but if it can be done.
We've discussed it before, so I mean, it's just a matter of, figuring out if you
There
can do
might be
that.
something, that, like Councilman Russell said, that the state doesn't know how close they are, and they might be able to grant us something. Okay.
Okay, and that's all we have from public works.
All right,
I have a question for Mark, if I may. Remember that 10-minute sign in a cement barrel or plastic 5-gallon barrel in front of Falcon Finance? Did we ever find out if there was a need to keep that there? It's getting to be pretty frustrating for some people that are afraid to park there for 10 minutes.
I'll ask again.
Yeah, find out, because, we could roll it right out if we had to. And then secondly, it's that time of year again when we're talking about alternate parking, And I guess there's been some discussion amongst some council people, but a lot of the neighbors and citizens are anxious to see if there's a way we could change all that parking from October 1st to November 1st. And I've heard that it might be awfully expensive to change the number of signs to read that, along with having a local law amended, or, you know, to allow that change to happen. But I came up with an idea, instead of buying whole new signs, we could buy fancy stickers, or maybe not magnet ones, but something that is simple to say, November 1st is the date, and I think a lot of folks would be very happy to see that happen if we could. I know it's short notice,
There's not time to do it. You have to have a local law,
so we,
30 days.
30 days.
I mean, we, next week is September 30th.
Okay, I guess,
I'm just saying, I mean.
I thought we were amending it.
You couldn't do that with an executive order, Kim? Because I know in Buffalo, they sometimes end the parking ban early if the weather is good.
No, we're just talking about changing the ordinance itself, the law.
Yeah, yeah, but just this year. if we
I
could
would
just-
highly recommend that it be discussed. I just don't know that for this November.
For this November, if it's gonna
in
be.
2
Well,
days.
we'll do it next year.
Yeah.
We should,
I mean, I don't
Get it
think,
going,
I think it's a fine
it's
idea,
not
it's
gonna be able
just
to do it this
the
year.
timing this year, we have a voting session next week, and it would have to be tabled, so
Right.
you're already into October. You don't have,
For 30 days.
so you really wouldn't even take effect
But
until.
you could make a public announcement that it's not being enforced to do it.
How are you gonna do that? 'Cause the signs all say one thing, so you have a tourist coming to
So you're gonna
town.
have cars on both sides of the street for a month.
It's
Then it gets
beneficial for the
dangerous.
residents that know, but it's certainly not beneficial for the tourists.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
certainly gonna confuse the heck out of the police officers that are like, do I ticket, do I not, do I?
Yeah.
is
I
it a
think it just
hazard?
makes sense to wait till next year,
Yeah.
because then we'll get more PR out to the people.
You have to find a
Waiting a year that we are gonna
Next
change it,
spring
and
into
next
the
year it's be
summer.
November.
They're talking about it now. that's
Yeah,
for sure.
we're talking about it now, we're going to effect next year, I think it's a no-brainer, it's,
I mean, we could have a resolution and pass it, but it goes into effect next year, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it, I just think
Yeah.
that the
I
timing is
just-
tough right
It's
now.
tough to do it in 30 days.
To do it
No.
in 30 days
No,
and
it's-
then,
Oh, cause
I don't think anybody really wants it in 30 days.
no, I mean, we don't expect to
I
go.
mean, it's
into
come up
effect.
every year and I know
Sure.
it's been discussed before and. you know,
I guess if people are on board with it, I just don't wanna see it kick the can down the road and not, you know, springtime we're talking about it again.
We can do everything this year, it's
You
just
do
a
it whatever
question,
you want.
we can do this year to be in effect next year, correct?
Absolutely.
You don't want to confuse people.
I would just wait until after it starts, like do it in November or whatever you wanna do, so that it's already started, people are already doing alternate parking. And it's
Sure. And then,
not to confuse the.
correct, and then I see what you're saying, and then pass it and say it doesn't go into effect until,
Cause then someone's gonna think that it's effective that day.
correct.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
And then they're gonna get a ticket.
That-
and-
sure. yeah.
Alright, we're good? Anything you got for us?
I only have one thing, and it'll be quick, and I'm excited to leave you on some good news. Thank you to our new controller, Erica Thomas, and some work with Elliot. We have been able to secure the lost million for the fleet management.
Really?
With some good news and some, it's all good news, we're still gonna get $1 million. However, because of some issues that were not done under the prior administration, we're only getting $700,000 for the fleet management building, but we are getting $300,000 that will be applied to another grant. So they're making us whole, but we're only getting the $700,000 for the fleet management. But I'm gonna let the controller tell you the best news about the bond, that we're not changing it.
Yes, we are not, when we did the rollover earlier, there was,
Up to 2.7.
yes, up to 2.7. So we're not going to go back and ask for that $1 million that I didn't get originally. So we don't have to do that because we're getting the 700. So
So what we
I'm
took
not
out,
borrowing another $1 million, I guess.
so that is the great news.
So when you mentioned the 300,000,
Mhm.
that was gonna be used for another grant, like,
Another project, yeah, it's basically, they're making us whole, but we have to use it on a different project.
and you,
That is
what you're
MW.
saying, what I hear you saying is that we don't know what that project is
I
going to
think
be.
we do, I think they gave Heather and Mark and that,
We know what the project is.
Yes.
We've already been awarded another grant through the state.
so it's just piggybacking on that one.
Does that 300,000 have to be used for that department, or can it be used anywhere?
No, it has to be used for that specific project.
Okay.
Yep.
Good news. Saving money all the way around.
At least making us whole, which is what we really needed.
One that just came to mind, from a newspaper article, I believe it was the zoning board or the planning board or planning commission referred back to us as council to interpret livestock or chickens. Have we heard anything from,
The variance was denied.
so they
In the
did
court, the variance
act?
was denied, yes.
Okay, I didn't catch that part.
Yep.
Good.
All right.
That's it. Go Bills.